morning, everyone. Welcome to On the Prowl 2024-2025 Florida Panthers All Questions, Episode 4, with very special guest Dylan from Florida Panthers Muse. Dylan, how are you this morning?
I am great. How are you doing?
Doing well, doing very well. Um, Florida Panthers Muse is a fantastic account out on Twitter or X if you haven't followed them. Dylan, can you tell us a little bit about Florida Panthers Muse, how you got it started, and where you're going?
Yeah, so last summer, I believe it was right after the Cup run where they lost Vegas in 5 games. Um, One of my friends actually started Heat Muse. I don't know if you're familiar with that account, but they run this basically same as Panthers Muse, but for the Miami Heat.
Mm-hmm.
And he got me and my other friend Aaron really interested. We're big X users, I guess. And, we just wanted to share some stats and any updates, any fun little things on X with any Panthers fans that we could find.
Awesome. You guys do, and I take it you and Aaron work in conjunction to put your post out there, correct?
Yes, correct.
Yeah, you do a fantastic job, and I got hats off to both you guys because the stats that you put out there are just absolutely fantastic. I mean, you guys do your homework, you do your research, and it shows with the quality of the content you guys put out there all the time.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. The Muse community is actually, pretty strong. We all help each other out. I know Rangers Muse has also helped us when we were, just starting with any specific things we should do, how we should post and all that. So everyone has really helped us a lot.
And the other thing I'd like to mention, your graphics are fantastic. How you guys do that is just unbelievable.
Thank you.
I'm pretty good with that with technical stuff. When it comes to graphics, though, I got to defer to I end up using people on Fiverr for my graphics. I can't do that kind of stuff.
Yeah, honestly, I was never that big into graphic design, but I kind of just like to mess around a little bit. And honestly, I feel like the graphics have looked pretty good. Thank you.
Yeah, you guys do a fantastic job. Want to get to a question I've been getting. I'm getting this a lot, and people are asking about another run for next year. And one of my big questions is: are the pieces in place to go deep in the playoffs for next year? What do you think?
I mean, I definitely think so. I think the core is pretty much intact and even signed on contract for a while now. Um, I know Bleacher Report, they just sent out a thing. They made a like I don't know, they made a article saying the one thing that's going to stop each team from making the cup. And the only thing they came up with for the Panthers is that it's pretty much very hard to go back to back. So I kind of
Right.
agree with that. I think the pieces are there. I'm sure Zito will make some move at the deadline, but I don't see why not, other than the fact that it's pretty dang hard to go to 3 straight cup finals.
Yeah, it is. Well, I look at the last team to have done it back to back, and that was the Penguins in 2016 and 2017. And it was amazing because the 17 team was different from the 16 team. They had some people depart via free agency and everything. And
Right.
it's kind of the same thing here, and this is another question. And Montour was fantastic. He was a key piece to that power play, and he's gone now. Can someone step up and fill his role on the power play? Do you think so, Dylan?
Yeah. Honestly, what I've been thinking is I know a lot of people have been saying Forsling should get on there, which, look, he's definitely our best defenseman, but you definitely need him on the penalty kill, and to have him skating that many minutes, I don't know if it's really worth it. When it comes to later in the season, it might be gas. So, in my opinion, I wouldn't be opposed to having Barkov QB the power play and maybe just adding
Hmm.
another forward out there.
Now,
I'm not
a
really
lot of
sure.
people are talking about the Boquist that we picked up and inserting him. And what my thoughts on that are to maybe put him on a second power play unit, not on the first, and see how he does. And if he has some production on it, elevate him up to the first. What are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, that seems like a great idea. I actually love the fact that we signed both of the Boquist brothers.
Hmm. Yeah,
Um, I mean,
I was real.
realistically, we weren't going
God.
to keep Montour. I mean, he's getting paid this $10 million a year. It's almost double what Forsling's getting paid. So I don't. I think Zito had a good offseason.
Yeah, I agree. And again, Zito worked his magic, and it's like he shops in the bargain basement of NHL players, and and he picks these guys up, and they just turn into magic. And one of the cases for me personally, because I follow the Penguins as well, was Erod, because I know
Mhm.
he had a stint with the Penguins, and he really looked like he was a fish out of water, so to speak. I mean, he had brilliant flashes, but it always seemed that the lines he was on never gelled. It was the same thing in Colorado. It just wasn't a fit. And then he
Right.
comes down here to the Panthers, and it's just like, wow.
Yeah. I mean, he had a great season. I know some people, they were in my comment section. They were like, "Rod can't finish" and all that. But I mean, I definitely think he disproved that in the playoffs. He especially played a great series against the Oilers. I mean, basically won us that game too. Um,
Hmm.
yeah, I think it was a great addition by Zito.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Absolutely. And it's like finding them. Finding these players that are hungry, and that's something that Erod was. Kind of say the same thing about Reinhardt. Okay, and Reinhardt came from a situation that was. I mean, it is the basement, Buffalo.
Right.
Really, there's really nowhere to go there, and we get him, and then last year he just has just an insane season. And one of the things I want to say about that first off is if you watch any game footage from last year, if you didn't watch games last year, who set him up almost all the time was Sasha Barkov.
Uh-huh.
It was, and some of these passes, and I got to say this, Dylan, some of these passes that Barkov does, it's inhuman. Okay, I don't know how he does some of these passes.
One of the best passers in the league. I'm one of my favorite, that now that you mention it about that duo, is I know everybody mentions that goal against the Rangers where Barkov, pulled out the magic out of his pockets. But the next goal, which actually happened a few minutes after, Barkov and Reinhardt just like three or four back-to-back passes to set up Reinhardt again, and that honestly was almost as good as the other goal. I mean, you can't really beat that Barkov pass.
People have asked me, do you think Reinhardt will have that kind of year again? And I said, you know what? I said, as long as people are healthy, I don't see why not. And especially with Barkov, the combination of them, and the chemistry that they have is just off the charts. And I see him having as good as, or maybe even a better year. And for what they signed him for, it's a bargain. It really is.
Yeah, it almost feels as if every time we sign someone, it's a bargain. I mean, it seems everyone wants to be here. And going back to Reinhardt, yeah, I mean, he could do it again. I think the one thing I will say is that I think maybe we need to bring another player so out on that power play because I feel like by the end of the year, teams are definitely reading that bumper play.
I agree. And you brought up a point earlier, forcing on the power play. You can't burn people out during the regular season. You have to,
Totally.
a season and I've heard it described before. It's a marathon. Okay, it's not a sprint, and you gotta plan. You're not going to win some games, and you're going to have some games that you're not going to be playing your A game out there. That's just a given, and it's going to happen. And also, too, part of that equation is it ends up being a long season. 82 games, that's a lot of games. And through
100%.
that kind of a time span, you don't want to burn players out. And I'm going to say this: you saw it in Game 7, like near the end of the game. Oilers were all gassed. I mean,
Yep.
they were totally spent, and
Uh-huh.
and you don't want that in the playoffs. You don't want your team coming that
Right.
kind of physically in the playoffs. And I think a lot of that was, if you go back to the finals last year, was we appeared gassed in the finals against Vegas. I mean,
Yep.
just there's no two ways about it.
Uh-huh. Totally. Yeah, I think injuries also hurt us in that series. Having E2 get hurt definitely was unfortunate because he's having good playoffs.
Hmm.
But yeah, like you said, we played over 200 games in the last 2 seasons now. The
Yeah.
guys are, yeah, I'll definitely be, and especially Forsling. I mean, he's been healthy both seasons, so imagine he's going through it. I think it'd be a big mistake if we put him on the power play.
I
If
do
I
too.
mean, if anything, try it in the season. Maybe save it for the playoffs in case you ever need a goal and it's really clicking. But I don't know. It'll be interesting to see what Maurice puts out there.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with you. And you know what? It's the shortest off season they've ever had. I mean, granted, I'm happy that it's a short off. Still,
Totally.
you need to get mentally prepared for your off for your during the off season. To spend some time and relax. But obviously, I know I follow some players. Like for example, Sidney Crosby, from day one of off season starts. He really doesn't take too many vacations. I mean,
Right.
he's gym, he's working out, he's out on the ice. He works out a lot with Nate McKinnon because they're both in the same town. I mean, it's those kind of things, and I'm sure the guys have enjoyed themselves, and we've all seen all the pictures, and it's
Yep.
fantastic. I think it's great, but we're getting close to 30 days out.
30 days today, I think, is the
30
first
days
game.
today. Yeah, exactly. We're 30 days out, and you got to get into that mindset. One of the people that I think is he is I think one of the most underrated coaches in the NHL is Paul Maurice. Okay,
Yep.
I followed his whole career for 30 years, and it always seemed he was just on the cusp of getting there and didn't push him over the edge. And he got these guys over the edge last year.
Yeah. I mean, it's incredible. He's been here 2 years, and we've had the two best seasons ever in Florida Panthers history. I mean, he's got to be in talks for top 5 coaches of all time. I mean, I think he has the second or third most wins, second most coached games. I mean, it's crazy. And you could see by the type of coach he is that even right after he won, he goes, next year, I hope Winnipeg gets one.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's him. And see, one of the things that I've had a lot of people ask me too is, what makes Paul Maurice tick? What drives him? What gets him going in the morning? And I've seen all kind of interviews with him, and he has a wonderful personality. I like it. He's kind of laid back, but he is so focused on hockey. It's not funny, and I think that's and you know what? The other thing is this is coaches in the NHL, I think they have a short shelf life.
Yeah,
Uh, for example, I'll go with the Penguins right now with Mike Sullivan. Mike Sullivan is a great coach. He's a great motivator, but I think his message has gotten stale. I think it's time. It's a whole thing with Fenway Sports Group owns the Penguins now,
yep,
and it's a whole different ball of wax. He may know some people because he's from the Boston area, so I think that's a lot of dynamics play into that, and they're a ways away from getting back into form. I don't see them
right.
making the playoffs for several years. But be that as it may, I think Paul Maurice has a good thing going. I think he's got the players to buy into his system, and you can tell they work that system game in and game out.
Totally. I mean, if you look when we made the playoffs a few years ago, like we'd have to score 5 or 6 goals just to win a game. And now you see literally across the board, every line, everyone's buying in. I mean, they're pinching in at the boards. They're playing good defense. Like they all really bought in. It all came together.
Yeah. Yeah. When you get a system out there that works and players are buying into it, you're going to have the kind of success that the Panthers had like last year. And Paul Maurice, this is just why I think he was a perfect fit for this team at the right time. And a lot of people were like, oh no, another coach coming. But you say that also realizing too who you're getting, and you're getting somebody with a more than capable and proven track record for that. For example, I think as far as coaching changes this year, everybody's talking about the coach that they hired for the Devils. Well, I really like the coach that they hired for the Blue Jackets. I think he's a right fit for them. I think he's
Mhm.
going to be somebody that's going to get a good mindset there going, get a Paul Maurice kind of mindset, and get players to buy into it.
Yeah.
That
I, mean,
that kind that kind of thing.
I
Um,
like to think Paul Maurice and Nico Mikkel are good friends because I feel like at the end of games, Paul's just like, Nico, go kill the last 15 seconds, bring the puck to the boards. It almost seemed to happen at the end of every game at the end of the playoffs.
Yeah, he did, and he did, and you're right. You brought out a good point. That those guys are good friends, and I think when you have that kind of a relationship like that, you can ask somebody to do something and they'll gladly do it. Literally, like I'll march to the gates of hell for somebody, and this
Mm-hmm.
is that kind of thing, which I think is great. Okay,
Yeah.
obviously, I'm going to say this: the Panthers don't win Game 7 without Sergei Bobrovsky. Okay, Bob was just he was in Bob form that night in Game 7. It was just, and he was making typical just highlight reel saves the whole game that night.
Yep, all night.
My question for you is this: is number one, and again, we've kind of alluded to the length of the season. It's a marathon. It's not a sprint. You have to have everybody ready. Do you think that the Panthers are in a good position with a backup to Bob for this year?
Yeah, I mean, personally, I've always been a huge Spencer Knight fan. I mean, I remember when I watched him on the USA World Juniors team and they beat that really good team out of Canada to win
Hmm.
gold right before. And then Spencer Knight came in, won a playoff game in his rookie year against the Lightning. So, I mean, I know he's had a tough last year or two for sure. I think the way that this year ended really helped him. I mean, seeing him with the cup on the ice and then even handing it to Paul Maurice at the end was amazing. I know we brought in Druger, who's also a pretty good backup goalie. I think it'll honestly be interesting. I hope Spencer Knight gets the backup spot, but I'm not really sure who will.
Yeah, and yeah, that's a good point, Don. And it's so important because the temptation for Maurice is there when you have somebody the caliber who's a future Hall of Famer as your goalie. All right, you want to play him game in and game out, but you have to learn to spell him. And because if you don't, you're going to get caught in the playoffs, and that's where it ends up showing is how tired people are in the playoffs, and are they physically capable of doing it. And I think that's a key. And if Knight can come in and spell Bob for a lot of games this year, maybe play 15-20 games this year, that's going to make a huge difference in having Bob fresh for the playoffs and ready to go.
Yeah, totally. I mean, Stolarz did a great job at that this year. He was probably
Hmm.
one of the top backup goalies in the league. I mean, I think he had a few shutouts too in the games he started. Going back to what you said about Game 7, I think Rob Tallis very, very great job of telling Bob to just take the day off right before. I mean,
Hmm.
Game 4, Bob struggled big time. I know he got pulled, I think, in the second period. Um, 5 and 6, I mean, he played all right. Don't get me wrong, he played a good hockey game, but it wasn't the Bob that we were used to seeing. And I think just letting him get that mental space really helped him for Game 7.
Yeah, you were right, and that's Dylan, it's such a great key point there is getting that day off because a lot of times, you're so focused on the playoffs and you overthink and you overanalyze and you just you put yourself in a bad spot, and that just mentally, just having a day off, that kind of time will really make a difference. And you can see you're right. That's such a key point for Game 7. It
Yeah,
really made such a difference for him, and he was able to just get in there and step in there.
especially as a goalie. Like, I know goalies are freaks of their own. I
Mhm.
personally, I played lacrosse goalie, so like I kind of get it a little bit, but I know they have their own little routine and they don't want to get it messed up. And I think it also goes to show the type of relationship that they have. Tallis knew that, he had to just clear his mind a little bit and take the day off.
Exactly. Absolutely. Absolutely. One of the things that I think and he is just a key to this team. You can't deny it. And I call him the most underrated player in the NHL, Sasha Barkov. Okay. Just game in and game out, just watching him, watching how he plays, and just his work ethic is second to none. And I have to say, and I really think, and I don't know how it came up, but I saw some stats with y'all when Yager was playing with the Panthers,
Hmm.
and I also read some things too how he took Barkov under his wings and he really helped him, and I think he really molded him into the player that he is today.
I mean, yeah, I've never heard about that, but I mean, it would make sense. I mean, every night watching Barkov, you see something he does, and you're like, he's one of the best players in the league. I mean, the way he controls the puck, I mean, he could hold it on his stick for like a full shift, it feels like.
Yeah, he has that ability to just especially, breakouts out of the zone. He is so good with that, and
Hmm.
he's so crisp. And I always say he has eyes in the back of his head because some of these passes that he does are just inhuman and otherworldly. I mean, you don't know how he does it, and he does it, and he does it game in and game out. And what I think is amazing is, and you had mentioned early on during our conversation here, a lot of the core players are locked up for years. Okay, Barkov, Kachuk, um, now we signed Reinhardt. Bob's up, I think, in a year or so. Am I right?
I think it's 2 more years.
He has 2 more years. Yeah,
We had also signed Forsling. Lindell we just re-signed for another 5 or 6 years, I think.
yeah, and it's so key. I mean, and I got to say this, when everybody bringing Zeno in, the first question was who, and then you look at his track record, and everybody goes, and then you see the work, the finished product, and what he's done, and it's nothing short of amazing. It really is.
Yeah, he's great. I'm very surprised he's not won GM of the year yet, but we won't go there. But I mean, from him throwing the water bottle to whatever game that was to winning the cup, I mean, it's really been incredible. And then going to the parade and going back to work that night to worry about free agency the next day. He's just amazing.
Yeah, having that kind of a mindset that he has is just fantastic because you don't find many like that. You don't find many people who are so into it. And like you said, that night, he's going back and he's looking at free agency. And I think because of that night, because of him doing that, I think he was probably working on the Reinhardt deal and getting that done. And what a great job he did. And the contracts that he's done are very reasonable with these guys. I mean, and for what we're paying them, personally, and I hope the players don't listen to me. I think a lot of them are underpaid.
Hmm.
But I also think too. I think they really like playing for the Panthers. They really like Paul Maurice. They like the team chemistry. What else can you say about a guy who I think is probably another heart and soul player of the team is Matthew Kachuk. I mean, that guy. I mean, when I started when they made the trade for him, all right, I'm like, my jaw hit the floor. I'm like, really?
Yeah.
Okay. And then you know what? It just instantly gelled. He was like a catalyst that got this team going, and it hasn't stopped since the day he arrived.
Yeah. I mean, I love the Hooby Dooby Doo by Goldie. I mean, there's nothing ever like that. But Kachuk, I mean, it's honestly incredible. I mean, he was when he 23 when he came in, and the way this team just changed their identity. I mean, I think that's also thanks to Maurice, but I mean, yeah, Kachuk's him. He also, after last off season, he said immediately, we're coming back and we're winning the cup. And I think the fact that they were all able to do that, that was the mindset going into training camp day one. It's really incredible.
To have that kind of mindset and to say, we're going out there, and it's not the braggadocious thing like remember years ago Joe Namath said, we're going to win the Super Bowl kind of thing. No,
Right.
it wasn't done with swagger. It was a statement. It was making a statement, and that's what he did. And he went out there and he made a statement. Now, I know he probably hasn't endeared himself to a lot of fans up in Edmonton, okay? He has grittiness to him, but yet he also has his head screwed on straight. Because I remember, there's some players out there that would just have grittiness to them, but they don't have their head screwed on straight. And
Yep.
I could list the human garbage can, as I've called him, Wilson from the Capitals. I mean, he goes out and he hits anything that moves, and it's always questionable hits from somebody like him
Right.
versus Kachuk. It's all in, when you go out there and you're playing hockey and you got to check people, you need to do it right. You need to do it legally, and you need to do it cleanly. And that's one of the things I think he does so well. He really does that well. And, there's something to be said for that.
Yeah. I mean, he's definitely a scrappy type of player. Um, it's a player that you only want on your team. You don't want to play against him. And I also think it comes from being from a hockey family. I mean, Keith has been there since he's come to Florida, at least. Keith has been there like all the time. I mean, personally, I think it's one of the reasons, we made it to the playoffs last year. He called the team soft when we were going on a losing streak.
Mm-hmm.
And then Maurice yelled at him at the team in Toronto, and boom, they make the cup final. Yeah, he's a great player, but also, hopefully love to see Brady in a Panthers jersey one day.
Yeah. Wow. That would
Wouldn't we all?
be awesome. That really would. And chances are pretty good something like that can happen because look who he's playing for. Okay.
Exactly.
They're not going to go anywhere for a while. One of the things, I don't know if you know this, but I live in Tampa
Right.
and, I have to hear bolts this and bolts that all the time.
Right.
And the reason I say this is I'm going to talk about Carter Verhaeghe. This guy just, he always seemed that he was in the right place at the right time not only during the regular season, but during the playoffs last year.
Yeah. I mean, during every playoffs, it seems like, every time you're in overtime, you're like, where's Carter Verhaeghe and when is he getting the puck? That's another good signing that the Panthers have had. I mean, I know he came from Tampa, but he's probably been one of our best playoff performers. I mean, is that bad to say that's the best playoff performer in Panthers history? I mean, the amount of clutch goals that he's had. I mean, he even got the assist on the game-winning goal in Game 7. He scored. I mean, he had a very bad drought going into the Game 7, right? Scores the first goal, gets an assist on the second one. I mean, one of the best playoff performers, I have to say.
Yeah, he is. It's you can have a mediocre regular season, but then you hit the playoffs and you just go and you just blossom and you bloom. And I think that was I think he was another case of, being over in Tampa, he was kind of lost in the sauce. I mean, he was still a great player, but I don't think there was a line out there that was right for him. And I think when Zito signed him and got him over to the Panthers and Maurice inserted him in that line, it gelled. It was like a hand in glove fit. He just fit in, and the fans love him. I love him too. I think he's just an absolute gem of a player. I really like him.
I agree. He always has that smile on his face. I mean, he's amazing to watch. And going back to what you said about having, a mediocre regular season, I think we need to talk about Anton Lundell. I mean, he had an amazing playoffs. I think he was tied for second in assists on the whole team. Mm-hmm. Something like that. He had around 14 assists. I think he'll have a really good year this year.
I do too. I think he's primed and he's pumped for a good year. And I think, you brought up a good point with that with Lundell. And I think, you can't, I mean, for what, I love Montour. Don't get me wrong. And I thought he was incredible during the playoffs last year, but he signed for stupid money with the Kraken. Okay. They're just, it
was unrealistic for us.
Yeah, totally unrealistic for the Panthers. Okay. And that wasn't going to happen. And I wish him well. And I wish all these players well. It's like for me, I remember going back to, I think it was 2016 or 2017, Bonino for the Penguins. Okay. In that HBK line that he had with Kessel and Hagelin, it was a great line and it worked really well. And he goes in and he signs with Nashville, and the chemistry wasn't there. He didn't, his work declined, and I think he's out of hockey now. And those kind of things happen. But with Lundell, it's just Zito just does his magic, and he does such a great job with that and balancing the things out. Yeah. I think he works, and I think also too, and a lot of people don't talk about this a lot, is how well he works with Paul Maurice. Okay, it's not, he doesn't do things. I think he and Maurice, get together and confab on things before he pulls the trigger, makes moves, do player signings. And I think that's a sign of a great general manager and a great coach, is them collaborating and working with each other.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it always seems that whenever Zito signs a guy, that it's like the perfect guy from Maurice's system.
That's such a key for them being able to do what they're doing for the year. Now, one of the things that I did during the offseason was I made the jump and I ended up getting a 10 ticket package to go see the Panthers play this year, albeit, I'm up near Tampa. So that's about a 3.5 hour drive. So we've kind of spaced it out enough. So I'm going to be going, kind of wrap like Thursday, Friday games, Saturday games. So it works well for us in taking time off. There's
Right.
usually it's like one or two games a month, and a couple of them are back to back. How many games do you plan on getting to this year, Dylan?
Um, Honestly, it's definitely getting a little harder now that they've been better. Um, more fans in the building, which is obviously a good thing. But I don't know. I'll try to go to a few games. Went to only one playoff game this last playoffs, which is game one of the Boston series where we lost, what was it, 5 or 6-1. So I told myself I'm not allowed back, which turned out well. I went to the Lightning game last year in Tampa, which was actually my first ever away Panthers game. I brought my girlfriend it was her first Panthers game, and it was when they destroyed the Lightning. I think it was 9-2, 9-1. It was absolutely amazing. But, maybe I'll try to get another game in Tampa, but I'll try to get up to a few in South Florida. Hopefully
Yeah,
more playoff games this year.
Yeah, I'm thinking about trying to get to the game here in Tampa as well too. I think maybe I can make that swing. For years, I lived in Columbus, Ohio for 30 years. I was a Blue Jackets season ticket holder,
Right.
and they have a great arena. It's really laid out nice. I really like it. Parking is okay. It's in downtown Columbus, but I think what they did with Amarant Arena and the way the parking is and the whole situation there, they really thought about this long and hard when they built the arena and they put parking in. And it's I think number one, it's one of the easiest venues to get in and out of, especially after a game. I mean, my wife and I, it's just so easy to do that. And then the actual arena itself, the aisles, where the concession stands are, they're very wide, they're very spacious. It's very easy to get around and navigate in. And all the seats I've had, I've never had a bad angle. I've never had a bad view. We're sitting in our tickets for the year are in 121. So, it's going to be, we're going to have a great view. I'm real excited about it. We make it a little trip. We're going to back-to-back games. They're playing on the 2nd and the 3rd of January, and they're back-to-back games, and we're going to those, and we're staying down there, and we're going to tool around and look at some of the sites and see some of the things, and have some fun and make it a nice trip. And we're really looking forward to that. So that's going to be a lot of fun.
You going to any Penguins games?
Yeah, in fact, I don't know if it's the 2nd or the 3rd. The 3rd is they're playing the Penguins on the 3rd. And then ironically, one of the other games that we're going to is against the Blue Jackets. And I think it's in March. So, I get to see these other teams play, and my all three of my children live up in the Columbus, Ohio area. So hopefully, we get up to Columbus at least a couple times a year because we have 2 granddaughters up there. So hopefully maybe we can get to Nationwide Arena and maybe catch a game up there too. So, and I know I would be remiss if we didn't, spend a couple of minutes in talking about, what shook the hockey world a couple of weeks ago with Johnny Gaudreau and his brother Matt. That was just, it was off the charts.
Yeah, I mean, that was definitely. I know there were rumors going around, which is terrible, especially with the tragedy like that. I mean, I think it was really nice seeing the hockey world come together, both Calgary and Columbus.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it shows both type of player both of these guys were, type of people they were. I'm pretty sure, like Johnny, he stayed an extra year at Boston College just to play with his brother. Is that what it is?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, just 2 amazing people, and the day before their sister's wedding, it's just very sad.
Yeah, it really is. But I think you brought up a good point. It's one of the things. It's nice to see the hockey community united in their support for the Gaudreau family, especially for Matthew and his wife is they have an unborn child, and the GoFundMe was, last I looked, was over $500,000, which was just awesome. And I think for me personally, with things like that, when tragedies like this hit, what I like to do is I like to go out and look at highlight reels, because what an incredible opportunity to see somebody. I mean, he had mad skills. Okay, he just, when he was on the ice, something special was going to happen, and it was a joy and a blessing to be able to watch him play. And I think that's the thing that we need to remember going forward, because you can get you can get stuck in a cycle with this and get into a funk. But I think the best thing that I've advised a lot of people is, I've had a lot of people ask me, what do you suggest? I watch his highlight reels. Just go out there, find his highlight reels. Even before, I know they're putting together highlight reels now, but even before the tragedy, go out there and watch some of them and just the way he played. And, it was so refreshing to see somebody like him, Dylan, because he was one of these kind of players, he wasn't a showboat, but he had showboat skills. And I think that's what people liked about him. And I talked to a lot of fans up in the Columbus area, and he was the kind of player, he went out in the community and he would shake people's hands. He'd run into people at the grocery store, just unannounced things. People would see him. He'd talk to them. He'd take pictures with them. I thought he was going to be the cornerstone for a rebuild for the Blue Jackets, because I think they needed somebody solid who had great hockey skills, who could be a real leader. And he was that kind of player. And, and unfortunately this happened, but I think the Blue Jackets can still build on that. I think they do have some good core people up there. I think they got a great head coach, and I personally like to see them get back into the mix, into the thick of things. So,
yeah, I mean, the type of player he was. I mean, I know he wasn't very tall, which definitely resonates with me because I'm not the tallest person out there, so sports haven't always been the easiest. But I mean, the type of influence you could see he had around the hockey community, especially like younger guys, college guys that may not be the biggest, but always had that passion for hockey. I mean, he's definitely gonna be missed.
He really, really is. Dylan, I'm going to thank you so much. Florida Panthers Muse. I'm going to drop a link in the description so you guys can definitely check him out on Twitter. He and Aaron. Yeah, your other friend who helps you out with that. Definitely, yep. You want to check them out. Single day, I look out there because you guys post some great stats. You do a great job. You keep it going. Just keep up the great work, guys. You do great work. And I want to thank you for stopping by on the Prowl on Florida Panthers Den. We really appreciate it, and we're looking forward to a great season coming up.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate you for having me. I know on Panthers Muse, we're definitely going to start kicking things back up a little bit once we get closer to the season. But yeah, hopefully, we'll see more posts getting posted out.
Sounds good, Dylan. Appreciate your time today. And as always, guys, it's a great day for Florida Panthers hockey. Take care. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you. You too. Go Panthers.